All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN all afternoon. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. How we feeling opening night NFL action tonight?
I'm good.
I got to tell you guys, it might be the most excited that I've ever been for the show.
Really?
We are going to talk about maybe potential new partnerships as far as picks go.
Mm-hmm.
Going to break some hearts. It's gonna rub some people the wrong way. It's going to be all kinds of crazy. All kinds of crazy, and I can't wait.
We're back at square one, right? We're picking winners. That is the intention all year, right? And
by the way, what did we even decide last year? What happened? Like, were you guys declared the winners?
Yes, of course we were declared the winners.
You were.
We legitimately
by
won.
like a half a game.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. They won. I just what do you mean? What did we decide?
Yeah, what do you think?
It wasn't
They
a
went to a
debate.
vote?
Like who won?
It's not a democracy.
Let's be real here. There was some monkey business. I forget the monkey business, whatever it was, but there was some blatant monkey business that me and Al's brother were like, hang on a second here.
Yeah.
But it passed through, and we let it slide, and
I don't remember that. Was there
I
a
don't
coin
really
flip
remember
or
it either.
Something like that.
Oh, you don't remember that? Do I have to dig it up and find out what happened last year?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Will.
Because I remember Luke Wilson and we came together as arguably the greatest gambling duo the world's ever seen, and that will continue. For those of you wondering, Luke will be in studio in the 6 p.m. hour. We have to determine who is going to call the game tonight. Pardsy. Yeah, my boy Pardsy.
Okay.
Pardsy will be in here. He and I were going to do a picture. Like, we haven't seen each other face to face since we were victorious, so we'll do like a retrospective championship picture.
So you gotta, so we got to sit by. This is like opening ceremonies the next year when they raise the banner.
Yes, we're going to be raising the banner, and Luke and I are going to be basically on the 50-yard line, and you two have to just watch and chew on it and basically be inspired.
When you guys have your little ceremony and you do the bro hug, the Goodell bro hug, I have an announcement that will just stun the whole building on who jumps on board.
I can't wait for this because
I'm looking forward to it.
There was a buzz on Twitter when that was announced. I think the Graps put it out or whatever, but I'm like, okay, I can't wait to hear.
Because he needs help. He can't do anything on his own.
You don't think so?
Literally nothing on his own, let alone pick winners. There's no way this guy can pick winners in the NFL.
So he needs help. You think he's got a ringer up his sleeve?
Oh, I think it's mandatory. If anything, I would suggest multiple layers of help, like as many as he can get. He needs to be in storage room B, and the movers and shakers are actually in the executive boardroom making things happen. So he needs to be basically like the face of the operation, but it's paper thin.
Do you think it's like the nail gun, Davis Sanchez, Kara Wagner, like a conglomerate,
right?
Like a team.
Yes, Takia could be in there.
Takia,
you just have no idea. You have no idea. I am the Shanahan of this operation.
Oh, really?
I move, I shake, I make deals, I get things done, and I don't even know if you could believe it unless you hear it at 6 or whenever Luke's
6 o'clock, in the 6 o'clock hour. And we got to determine who makes the pick tonight. We can allow that to be a democracy. I'd be okay with that. If you want to put up a Twitter poll or something, Grappler, you can send up a poll, let it expire at 6 o'clock, and the people can choose. Who do you want to have the first pick of the season? I'd be fine with that.
Really? Like just a vote?
Yes, let the people vote.
You don't want a coin flip?
I don't need a coin flip. I'm cool with the democracy if you want. It doesn't matter. It's the first pick of many. I mean, we're talking, 60-plus picks or more than that?
Take your pick. Vote. Go ahead and vote at Hayes TSN or at OverDrive. Luke Bryan or O-Dog and Company.
Okay, I like it.
Here's why I think you're fine with that. Is this game almost a pick 'em tonight?
It's moving in that direction.
Right?
Last time I checked on FanDuel, it was, I think, down to 4, right, Grappler? Like Chiefs by 4, 4-point favorite. And I just saw on Twitter Adam Schefter tweeting out, and this feels very significant, that the Chiefs have activated tight end Matt Bushman, and defensive tackle Matt Dickerson off their practice squad for the game tonight. So that means Chris Jones, defensive tackle, not playing tonight. Travis Kelce, tight end, likely not playing tonight.
Wow.
So the line is 4.5 on FanDuel. I'll bet you after this, I'll bet you it moves towards Detroit. I wouldn't be shocked if we picked at 6:10, 6:15, it's down to 3.5.
Which is a field goal, which is a pick 'em.
Basically a pick 'em based on home field, right? Generally, the books would suggest whoever is at home, that's worth like 3 points. So if this was a neutral site game, it's almost like a pick 'em, give or take.
Man, oh
So
man.
I don't know. We'll see. Let the people vote. All right, throw it up on Twitter, Grappler, because
if
we
this was a
are men
slam
of the
dunk,
people.
though, if this was a slam dunk,
I'd still be fine with
you'd
it.
want a coin flip.
But I don't think anything's a slam dunk with
not-
O-Dog and company. I think it would be for Team Luke
Dude,
Bryan.
I'm telling you right now, do not. What did Will Smith say? Get my name out your mouth.
Take my
I'm
wife's
telling
name
you,
out of your mouth or
Don't
something
talk.
like that. What
Don't
did he
talk
say?
about O-Dog and company, and don't crap talk us. Because wait till you see this roster, dude. This is gonna rock the world.
Okay,
rock the world.
All right, you have my attention. You have my
like-
attention.
He always talks about he goes for breakfast with a guy who's 80.
Shady
years old,
character
whatever.
that's up
That's
to
the
no
guy.
good.
He's gonna introduce his buddy his
Right.
breakfast buddy.
Right,
Guys,
George or
yeah.
something, Nikki. Be Nikki
Exactly.
Papadopoulos or
Yeah,
something like
it'll be-
that. And
Or it's gonna be a guy that he'll wheel in who's legitimately like a bookie. Like he's gonna have a tracksuit on, like something like that.
possibly. I guess we'll find out. We're a couple hours away from finding that
Guys,
out.
this is a professional show. Do you think I would not get someone that's on television? I'm a professional.
Okay.
Got it.
I
Gurdeep.
am a professional.
All right.
Maybe Gurdeep.
I don't think
Or-
that's possible anymore. I don't know if Gurdeep would quite. He'd be crossing a line that I'm not sure is allowed anymore.
I know, but I'm
There
just
was
saying,
a time we could have gone to
There's a
that.
time, but Gurdeep's a friend of the show.
He is a friend of the
He's
show. We
buddy,
love Gurdeep.
and-
Actually, you know what? I saw Gurdeep and Pooja. I saw them both at the King's Plate.
How was
and I
that?
was wearing this jacket.
I was just gonna say,
I was that's why I'm wearing this jacket, because I was picking winners up at Woodbine, and I'm going to have a great season.
every
with
time
Luke
I
Wilson.
turned around, you were at some event.
Yes, I had a great
This
time.
summer.
A great summer. I had a great summer. And the King's Plate was phenomenal. Our friend
What was
Leanne.
the Eddie O? What was the Eddie O behavior at the Queen's Plate?
Well, so I tweeted out that Eddie O was a popular guy. He wasn't actually at the King's Plate.
oh my God.
We had him on before the King's Plate. We had him on the Friday, and he was making picks for us.
Right.
And he picked like the 2, the 3, the 8, the 15, all this different explanation. None of it hit. Eddie actually.
None of it hit?
I put a fortune on Eddie's picks. But do you know how many people I had telling me while I was walking in, we were waiting for the shuttle, people like, I was listening, I'm on Eddie O. I must have had 15 people, I'm not kidding. And like from degenerates to like people that never gambled before, people that were there simply for the free drinks and the free food.
And
everyone was coming up to me saying, I was listening to Eddie O. I'm on it. The 2, the 3, the 8, the 15. Let's
You
rock.
better
He
give it to
jammed you
him the
up?
next time he's on. You
Oh,
better
Eddie's
give
gonna
it
have to
him.
hear about it because it wasn't even close.
Really?
Like I don't know if any Eddie's horses really came in. Grappa, you were there. I don't remember any of them possibly, placing. Maybe one of them placed.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, he prefaced his answer by saying that it's a tight field and that any number 8 or 9 horses could have won. And I think you mentioned whoever ended up winning. I can't remember the
The
name of
13
time.
horse. I remember that because my wife picked it and won, and I still have not heard the end of that.
Yeah, but I do believe that he was like, watch for this one. So
Yeah.
but no, it wasn't his best performance.
It wasn't his best performance. And again, my wife, that's her favorite number, 13. That's her birthday. So she goes, I'll just put money down on the 13. She wins. We got Eddie coming in. He's talking about the horse's parents, where they're from, the diet, and you get there and it's like, I'll just pick my lucky number. Ends up winning the King's Plate. So anyway, yeah, it was a fun summer and we got the NFL back. And again, I'm curious to see what happens here with the line and if we hear any news on Travis Kelce and if he's even going to be dressed tonight. I would suggest even if he's dressed, which I doubt he will be, he'll be a decoy tonight. Like he's not going to play. He might go out there and block a couple times on different runs, but I don't think this is a guy that's really going to play a big factor in the game tonight. And Chris Jones, he won't be playing either. So those are 2 of their 3 best players.
Yeah.
Yet it's Patrick Mahomes, primetime at Arrowhead against the Detroit
The
Lions.
Detroit Lions
So-
is the key thing, right?
Watch what you wish for here, man. This is still a
And
tough game to pick.
Hazy, regardless of his weapons or regardless of the raw. I think somebody posted. I know somebody posted his success in game 1. Outrageous.
Crazy numbers.
Crazy off the charts where
Yeah.
he likes to make a statement saying, we're here and watch out because we're not messing around.
Right.
I'll tell you what, piquing my interest watching that quarterback on Netflix. Like this guy, his life, like he seems very, I will say, very, very dedicated to his craft. Like the coaches, the strength coaches, everything involved with it. But there's a lot of noise around him. Like it's just, he's arguably one of the greatest players, but it's noisy.
Well, when you're in the spotlight as much as he is, though, it's probably going to be noisy. Like, I will say this, the Brady-Belichick Patriots, it was noisy with them too, but it was about like cheating, it was Deflategate, Spygate, stuff like that. But everything else seemed to be pretty quiet. Like Belichick and company for 20 years just tried to keep any controversy out of it. Not that there's controversy with Mahomes and the Chiefs,
no,
but there's a lot going on in his life. There's a lot of people around him that are very public.
Yeah, the brother's
his brother is constant. He's a TikTok star. He'll be out there on the field before kickoff tonight doing different things.
I thought that was weird in the documentary or whatever. It's like the wives are right on they're on the sideline.
Oh yeah,
like
sideline access is apparently not that tough to get when you're a part of the crew.
It's just weird. Like I think that's the new athlete, though, because we see it in hockey. Guys in warm up, the kid, the wife and the baby and in the glass and all of that. Like, I just never, like, I know in my era and O's era, like it just wasn't
Noodles,
there.
If it was mandatory that our kids were down, somebody would have said, forget about the family on the glass and worry about the game.
Yeah,
I could already see it.
No, I get it, but it's different. Like, it's just the lay of the land is different. You have to accept it. It's just now seeing it in every sport. It's just everything's casual leading up to the battle.
Well,
right?
I would suggest the more probably flamboyant and in-your-face example of that is the relationship between the players, the opposing players now.
Yeah.
Where, like, forget who's outside of the rink. Could you imagine in 1987 lining up at the red line with your buddy and talking while you stretch?
Yeah.
Like, that would never happen. Or, like, before the game, you're out taping your stick and you're talking to each other.
I did that. I tried that. One of my first games in Greensboro, I was talking to Jason Allison at the red line, World Juniors. And Gary Roberts skated by, and he absolutely lambasted me. And he said, "What do you think? This is a joke?" And it was just like, all right, like that's like we were laughing and kidding, and I was a young guy, and he was so mad. He was like, "This isn't a joke," and he lost it on me at center ice in warm up.
Yeah,
and I got up and I skated away, and I said, "I guess there's no more of that."
That's a perfect example. Like, guys are now doing rock paper scissors to see who leaves the ice last.
Yeah.
It used to be there'd be brawls before games.
Like legitimately
brawls.
Like when I played junior, I think it's changed now, but when I played junior, we had separate warm-ups. We weren't allowed to be on the ice at the same separate warm-ups.
That's like honestly what you would think you'd see in like
Slap
the penal
shot.
league. Yeah, exactly.
Like
two different prisons are playing.
But
so you have to have different warm-ups.
I've told you guys the story. My first year, there wasn't separate warm-ups, and playing in Prince Albert, they had such a tough team. They came and took our net from the other end.
Yeah.
And I was starting, and I would just warm up on the boards. We weren't allowed to come out of our blue line.
Right.
We had to skate at that end. And then the next, I think, fast forward a year or two later, we had separate warm-ups because there were so many brawls and all hell broke loose. You just couldn't do it.
Like Pooley's told this story when I think he was the captain of the Flyers when the Flyers and the Canadians had that big brawl before the game. And Pooley, I'm pretty sure, had like a separated shoulder or like broken sternum or something. And he had to go out there and he's like, this gets out of control. I'm in big trouble. Like, he was not in a position where he could fight. Oof. And I think Bob Gainey was still the captain in Montreal. And I think Pooley said he and Gainey kind of were in the corner talking it over, like, how are we going to separate this? But that's on YouTube. It's wild.
Well, there's
it was Cole Lemieux, I think, and Shane Corson. I think the two of them were messing around with the opponent's net. They were scoring goals late before they left the ice.
Yeah. And
there was some mutant on Philly that's like, if you do it again, I'm chasing you and I'm beating you.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, just old school. That stuff is so far away
Crazy.
in the rearview mirror.
Crazy.
But you fast forward and you're watching this and having the family and stuff. Like, Mahomes has this routine. It's really cool to watch. But then, in the middle of it, he runs over, says, good luck, or the wife says good luck, and then she goes on to her thing. It's just like this. I'd never seen that before, and now you're seeing it now a lot more.
Doesn't seem to affect
pro
them.
sports. No, it
Doesn't seem to
at all.
affect anybody, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you think would have happened if in 1987 there was a guy on your team who had played 77 games and was about to make like $65 million? Like this Jake Sanderson contract yesterday, which we'll get into, I believe he's played 77 games.
Oh, yeah. Like
And he just got 8 by 8. Like he's going to make $65 million and he's played 77
It
games.
is crazy, but he's going to be worth every penny of that. Like he is their best defenseman. He might, if he's not today, he might be
In 2 months.
He's that good. Like he's a superstar.
But it is crazy, though, how like
You know what?
the leverage,
That's
you have a good first year, Hazy. The talk is out there because everyone that talks about Jake Sanderson says this guy is a stud. And just what Noodle said, if he's not their best defenseman right now, he will be in 2 months. So that buzz kind of gets the organization, I got to lock this guy up. And then all of a sudden, monster deal. And it's like, good on the kid, good on the player, deserves it. Any other player, I'd be like, man, that was a little bit aggressive. 77 games.
It is.
I don't
but if
think
you watch that kid play, he is unbelievable. But you're right about one thing. It seems like, and I know, back when me and Noodles, guys had to sign contracts, but it seems like contracts are just such a big, they just seem to like pop up all the time, and they're so big, and they're such a big talking point now. You know what I mean? Where it's like bridge deals back in the day, they kind of went, they were pushed under the rug, and it was just like kind of standard transaction. Like these are like monster deals that are just popping up. And if you talk about it all the time, Hayes, you want content, it's good for business, and you want to be talking about the sport. Well, that's what you got. But it seems like the contract element of it, it's pretty prominent.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the conversation. I don't think he's deserved it. Like, I don't think he deserves it. It's based on talent and hype and expectation.
Well, and getting
he's played 77 games and never played in the playoffs.
Up. We talked about
deserve is a strong word.
We talked about this last year when Buffalo signed that Samuelson kid for 4.5 at 7 years as like a support, and we were like, why the hell that deal type of thing. I thought about this yesterday. Not every market is the same, right? Like Ottawa is a unique market. Buffalo's a unique market. Some markets want, they need to keep their guys there. They want to keep their guys there. And for me, seeing that, it's clear there's a consistent theme. They want their guys locked up term. It's Tkachuk, it's Stützle, it's Shabbat, it's Batherson, and now it's Jake Sanderson. Those guys are, and Josh Norris. That's their core moving forward, and they're all at $8 million.
I know.
Yeah.
I've loved it, Noodles, and we've talked about it a bunch. Where it's like, gotta get our core locked up, and it's like, okay, they haven't made the playoffs in a few years now,
Yeah.
and what if they're like? It's great to have your core, but what if your core doesn't do anything?
Well, that's what they're gambling on here. I will say these are all Pierre Dorian guys. Right, and he hits
good
Stützle.
players.
Well, Stützle 3rd overall, Sanderson 5th overall in the same draft. They're both locked up. Yeah. Stützle had a great year last year. I think we know what he's going to be. And I actually think this is worth the gamble. And I don't think it's as much of a gamble as it would be with maybe other players.
The Samuelson kid.
Yes, exactly.
And Hayes, that's how you do turn it around when you're in a predicament where you're picking 3rd and 5th. You got to hit. You got to hit. And you got to lock them down if you want to turn the corner. And you got to give them credit. They've done that.
Well, and again, I think based on what I've seen out of Sanderson, and I trust you guys more because I've only seen him play a handful of times. I saw him at the juniors, again, 5th overall. Right. I think if he stays healthy, at worst, he's a second pair guy, which means maybe he's a $5 or $6 million defenseman.
Right.
And if they're paying him 8, this is a team that's probably not going to the cap anyway. You can live with that. Yeah. But if he plays like a 10, 11, $12 million player, then it's an incredible contract and it's really smart. And you mentioned the markets. I think that's important here.
Yeah.
In Ottawa, if a guy is willing to give you term, you have to take it. You got to keep the guy, especially he's an American. He's got Canadian parents. But
yeah, he does. I mean, listen, he's his parents. I grew up with his parents.
Yeah, Jeff Sanderson,
Jeff and Ellen, but he was born in Montana. They have their summer house there.
Right.
But this kid is a stud. I thought of that right away. But now, listen, they're all getting paid. You got to go perform.
Well, now, like
This is
Dorian
it.
and
Like,
company are like, this is what I've
go.
done now.
Yeah.
These are the guys. And I really like their young core. Like, I love Brady Tkachuk. Everyone does.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah,
dislikes
exactly
Brady Tkachuk. Stutzla was great last year. I expect that will continue for years to come. Sanderson, the same thing. I think Norris is a good player. You got Chikrin if he can stay healthy. Shabbat, he's maybe a defensive liability, but he can play.
Yeah.
And yet I don't see a Stanley Cup core there, but I see a really good young core that has a chance to be a playoff team year in, year out.
Right.
I think they need to add more like high-end and maybe they think Sanderson will be that. If Sanderson becomes like a Norris-type caliber guy, if Stutzla can be 90-plus points a year, maybe that is enough.
Their captain,
But
Hazy, their captain who doesn't blow smoke, he was talking to somebody last week, and do you know who he said the most underrated player in the NHL was after watching him for 77 games?
Jake
Sanderson.
Now, I mean,
Well, then Matthew
And
Nyes, then we're going to take Matthew Nyes and his comments to the bank. Like, didn't we just have this conversation? Like, of
Yeah.
course
All
he's
right.
going to say
All
that.
right.
That's his
All
teammate.
right.
Like,
I
obviously
love
he
how
loves
it's
his
fine for
guy.
Nyes to say whatever he wants, but you go to another
No,
market.
my argument
like
was
dumping on a
my
guy.
argument was with Nyes was that I think he was just being a good teammate. I don't
Right.
I don't know if he actually believes it, but it's his guy. So of
Right.
course he's going to say, "Hey, Matthews, he's the best." What else is like Kachuk maybe didn't have to go there,
Right.
but of course he's going to love Sanderson and his teammate. And
I think that core, if they continue to grow, they could do damage because Stutzla's a superstar. Like he's going to be a 100-point player.
yeah, if he is, that's superstar status.
And Brady
Yep.
Tkachuk is a unique superstar.
Yes, he is.
So that's two up front. Mm-hmm. Josh Norris.
Norris
a
is really good.
So now you start in the support cast, right? Norris, Batherson. They added Tarasenko. They've got guys around. They need to continue to add. But if you have a defensive core, like Zub is that stay-at-home, kind of Brody, guy, Jake Muzzin type of thing. But then you've got Shabbat, Sanderson,
Chikrin.
Chikrin.
That's pretty good.
It's solid.
It's pretty good.
Now, you need saves. Now that goaltender getting $5 million a year. He's going to have to make the saves, but they took the chance on that. Coming back to it, two things stand out. I talked about the market. These guys have committed. Yes, they're getting paid lots of money, but they're like, hey, we could take our. Stutzla could have put his hand up and said, "I'll play it out," and you know what, let's
bridge me, and we'll see where we
see
go.
what LA looks like. See what he decided to stay. Kachuk committed. Like
That's big.
Kachuk's brother put his hand up in Calgary and said, I put 9 years in. I'm moving on. Like I think they've committed, but I all I could think about is you saying, okay, they all got paid. Now you got to go do it. That's the thing. This team has to be a playoff team this year based on the commitment the organization has made to those players.
Well, yeah, I think it's imperative that happens for the GM and his security, for the coach and his security. The players,
I know.
you're not going to you can't pull back the contract. I mean, if they miss, they're still getting paid.
Well, you're right. But what I'm saying is, like, there's no excuses. You're not sitting there going, I'm playing for a contract. I'm playing for this. It's like,
Yeah, they've committed to you. Now you you absolutely
Go
need to
show us.
Yes, it's
And
got to be reciprocated. The faith that they put in you.
I think that crew can do it. But again, not easy task. The toughest division in hockey, the Atlantic,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Like you're up against the Leafs, the Lightning, Boston, Florida was in a Cup final.
Yeah.
I think Buffalo is on the right track.
Buffalo's. I think Buffalo and Detroit got better in the offseason too, just by osmosis of growth of their young players too. So it's going to be a battle. I could see 8 million people thinking that's rich over 74 games.
Well, it's
100%.
because he's barely played in the league, but he's a 5th overall player that looked really good this year. And obviously they drafted him with the expectation that he was going to blossom into a pillar of the organization. Yeah. And they're willing to put their chips in. I think it's a smart play.
Yeah, that's what he's going to be, Hazy. I text Noodles all the time while he's doing the games, watching that kid play. He is real deal Holyfield.
Yeah,
he is.
And I would usually be on board saying, this is insane. But there's some kids you just get a feeling about where they're just that good.
Oh, listen, there's a lot of examples. I guarantee you we could comb over league-wide where you say whichever GM was running things should have gone up to that guy after year 1 or year 2, said, how can we lock you up long-term at a cheaper deal? Right. As opposed to we're going to take our time, play it out. Because if Sanderson goes out this year, plays 82 games, has 50-plus points, looks like a stud, then he might be asking for 9.5 or 9.5. Who knows what he'd do at that point? Like you're trying to get out in front of it. And, again, I think at a minimum he's probably a second-pairing guy if he's healthy. And if he's a top-end guy, if he's a Norris caliber guy, then he should be getting paid 11, 12, 13.
Right.
That's the math we keep talking about. That's great work by Ottawa if that happens.
And then you factor in, again, the market. Like,
Yeah.
not every market
Everyone's
is
committed.
for
Everyone
everybody.
feels
Like,
good. That goes a long way.
I thought it was very reasonable on every side, but you can see the counter argument is the guy hasn't done enough or played enough to show. But some guys, you just like, I believe in this guy. You watch him play, you're like, this kid's special.
Yeah.
And I
think
believe
the
in him.
GM's noodles have gotten away from the Lou approach where it's like, it's too much money and it's too long. They're just like, you're going to be a good player for a long time. This is just the going rate.
Well, he just
handing
turned-
over $64 million is the going rate for a good young player that you've drafted and you think is going to be a part of your team.
Scary part is he just turned 21 the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. Like, that's
Well, he's got another year on his entry level, I guess, and then this will kick in after that.
Yes.
So,
yes, you got him for 9 years.
yeah, you got him.
Yeah.
Gonna be pretty good. Stutzla, I guess, would be the same thing, or does Stutzla kick in this season?
I think it's this season, but
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, because Sanderson went back to school. Stutzla walked in at 18.
Right.
So his deal wouldn't have kicked in yet. But yeah, listen, Ottawa, they've got young pieces and they know what they're building with for quite some time. And it's just on them to take a next step and then
Now they gotta
see what
do
they
it.
can do beyond that. All right, Dan Patrick will join us just after 5 o'clock. The annual tradition, night one of the NFL season. DP steps in. We'll get his take on the game tonight, what he sees happening this upcoming season. And Steve Phillips will join us. The Jays are off today, back in action with Kansas City in town tomorrow. We'll start teeing that series up with Steve Phillips. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We'll get to our best bets. We got a same-game parlay for the football game tonight. This used to be a big night for debauchery, like a really large night, drinking, eating, gambling. Now,
Wheel, maybe?
gambling, eating,
Yeah.
possibly drinking.
There you go. Just in a different
Anything's
fashion.
possible tonight. Now that I think about it, why not?
Your neighbor, I know for a fact that your neighbor, Julian,
Yeah.
will have the game on in his garage.
I think he's looking forward to this evening's festivities.
He's got a glass with ice in it and a rum.
He's probably watching the pre-game right now,
Yeah.
making sure that we're ready to rock for the night's festivities. So that's kickoff tonight. Dan Patrick in about a half an hour on that. But the Jays are off today, back in action tomorrow. They hit the road, obviously, this past week. They took 2 of 3 in Oakland, 2 of 3 in Colorado. To chat about that, among some other things around the world of baseball, here's our TSN MLB analyst, our good buddy Steve Phillips. How you doing, Steve?
Yeah, doing okay, guys. Just looking to see if you've heard if Travis Kelce's going to play tonight. He's on my fantasy team. Got to figure out whether I'm going to put him in the lineup or not. What are you hearing?
I don't think I'm hearing good things, man. They just activated their tight end off the practice squad. That would suggest that Kelce probably not playing tonight.
Right. Okay.
Not
All right,
good.
Good to know, but it's good to know in advance, so I don't put him on there, right?
Yeah,
Gotta
you
know
got to
that
be
stuff.
careful, man.
Yeah,
It's
you
all
do.
about decoys, right? They
Yeah.
love a decoy in the NFL.
Hey,
and-
you know what happened? Listen, he fell to the second round, and I couldn't let him go past that.
Right.
Because he might miss a week. But if he's going to be back next week, then it was well worth the value of getting him in the second round, right?
He's a stud.
course.
He's an absolute stud, man. When he's playing, he's lights out. The guy's, I mean, you look at his numbers over the last 6 years. I saw it last night. He's like second in touchdowns, second in yards, fourth in receptions. That's including every wide receiver in football.
And he did
He's
a
tight end.
podcast, too, in between. Didn't he do a podcast?
He and his brother
just-
do a podcast.
But right before the Super Bowl, wasn't it? Didn't
Yeah,
they-
that's right.
They didn't pull the plug on it
they
that
were-
week.
Like the day before the game, the two of them who were about to compete for the Super Bowl were doing a podcast. That's commitment, right?
that
Steve?
is.
That's good. It's like he's like Ohtani. He's like a little like the Ohtani of the NFL, doing a little bit of everything.
Right.
Steve,
out there.
why
By the
did
way-
the Angels? Why did they drag the trainer into the pick for to be Ohtani?
Yeah, everything's crazy. By the way, Patrick Mahomes grew up in my Mets clubhouse. You know, his dad pitched for me,
Right.
Pat Mahomes with the Mets, and so Patrick was there as a baby, a little young guy, not baby, but he was a young guy, out trying to shag fly balls out there for family day. Man, he's growing up and he has turned into some kind of player, boy, and some kind of young man. His dad, Patrick, was good. His mom was terrific as well. Really, and remember, she's the one who reminded everybody it's not Pat, it's Patrick.
Right.
Yeah, they're both really solid people, and he's obviously turned out to be a fine young man.
Yeah, I'd say it's worked out pretty well. I think the Mahomes family, they have a lot to be proud of, wouldn't you say, Steve? I think it's worked out pretty well
And,
for them.
I got to tell you, Mom was an athlete too. She was tall. Like she was she had a presence about her, just like, the dad did too. Pat Mahomes, the pitcher for us, was a great, he had like 8 or 9 wins one year coming in middle relief, and really was a very valuable guy for our team. But really good parents, and not a surprise that he's turned out as quite a specimen.
Yep, it's go time for them tonight. And the beauty is, if you're a Blue Jay fan, you don't have to worry about conflicting schedules tonight, right? It's all about the NFL game. The Jays are off. They're back in action tomorrow. 2 of 3 in Oakland, 2 of 3 in Colorado, 4 and 2 on that trip. 2 of the worst teams in baseball, but probably good enough, I would suggest, because at this point, Texas, they are the worst team in baseball. They are absolutely horrendous. And if the Jays can win 2 of 3 over their final 22, I think they're getting in. I think they'll cruise in, especially if they take at least 2, if not 3 out of 4 against the Rangers next week.
Yeah, I think, the Rangers are reeling right now. They're in a full-blown deep dive. It's the snowball that's rolled down the mountains, turned into an avalanche. And it's really hard to get underneath it and stop it and push it back up the mountain once that's started. They're 4 and 15 in their last 19 games. And they're not hitting like they were. They're, people keep pointing to the bullpen, but they're starting pitching. I mean, Eovaldi came back. He went an inning plus. The bullpen had to eat up, 7+ innings. Then Scherzer. People kept saying, Scherzer, Verlander, who would you rather have? I kept saying Verlander for sure, because every time over the last 3 or 4 years, 5 years, Scherzer gets late in the year and something comes up. He's tired, his arm's fatigued, he's got some ailment. And sure enough, it's cropped up again, both in his last start against the Twins, where he actually went 6 innings and threw pretty well, but he said he came out of it with fatigue and no injury, but now he's talking about an ailment and the forearm strain. And so, it's not good for them at all. And they only have 2 off days between now and the end of the year. So there's no rest for their bullpen, which is completely overtaxed and undermanned right now.
Steve,
by the way, Adolis Garcia got hurt yesterday, jumping at the wall to try to rob a home run. And he's a critical guy to their team. And he limped off. And Bruce Bochy said he's in quite a bit of pain. So that could be another significant, thing turning the corner here for us as well.
Steve, I haven't talked to you all summer. How are the Jays at this particular point in your eyes? I mean, what is separating them? We talked about it yesterday, from being that, and Atlanta's an aggressive comparison because they're such a powerhouse, but just that team with the pitching staff and the talent they have that's not kind of locked in right now as opposed to fighting for their lives. Like, what are the main things that are kind of separating them from being there?
Yeah, it comes down to consistency. And you think about Atlanta and even the Dodgers. The Dodgers have lost like 6 in a row right now. But
these are veteran guys, Steve. Like, it should not be an issue.
And there is some maturity missing from the Blue Jays. And it's the teams with talent and maturity. They show up every day. They give you the same. Like Houston is like a machine. They had a lot of injuries this year that took them a little time to get going, but they really, they were undermanned. They had less pitching because Verlander had left, and now he's back. And they lost Luis Garcia, and they lost Urquidy for a while, and they lost McCullers. Yet they, the maturity level of Dusty Baker at the helm, and Altuve now is absolutely on fire, tearing it up, and Alvarez, and they get Brantley back, and Brantley hasn't played all year, steps in and just hits. Bregman is in, it's these players that have talent that the consistency's there, that when they start to struggle, they know how to get themselves out of it. And that comes through experience and maturity and not letting the emotions overtake you. And there is a part of the Jays that it's been a lot of starting and stopping this year. To me, then they'll make some base running mistakes that they shouldn't make. And they'll make an error they shouldn't make. And, there's something about these young guys that have stepped into play that, quite honestly, I would say that you can make a case that Davis Schneider and Spencer Horwitz and Ernie Clement, they may be the most valuable, most important players for them this year, because when they lost, key players, they came up and gave far more than anybody would have thought. Ernie Clement hasn't hit his entire career until now he's in the big leagues. And Schneider's been absolutely phenomenal. Horwitz stepped in when Brandon Belt was sick. And so when they've been undermanned, the young guys have stepped up in a way that I don't know that anybody really expected. And they're just baseball players. They're not the big pedigree guys. They're not the guys that are going to hit 350, but they can step in and get it done. And the thing about the Blue Jays is they have, the first or second best ERA in all of baseball. This is about the position players and their lack of consistency overall.
Steve, when you talk about consistency, I think a lot of old school people, they might direct their attention to the skip, because at the beginning of the year, Schneider even said it's going to be a different ball team. We brought in some veteran people, and the silliness, the base running errors, it's stopping now, and it really hasn't. So I think some people would look directly at him.
Yeah, I get it. And, when you look at this playoff race, right, you've got Bruce Bochy, Dusty Baker, and even Scott Service, who doesn't have a lot of, experience as a manager, but his experience was that he beat the Blue Jays and John Schneider in the playoffs last year. And they've come back and rallied. And so, yeah, you got to get your experience somewhere. And, you can have it at the minor league level, and you've got to develop it at the major league level. I mean, look, the guys play hard for him. They do make some base running blunders that are inexcusable, honestly.
Yes.
The one I remember was Bichette. Now, he had the quad injury, and he had coming back from the knee, but he ran right into an out and a ground ball right in front of him. That's like base running 101. That you get high school kids and American Legion kids together. You lead off second base. If the ground ball's in front of you, going to shortstop, you don't run. You wait. And he ran right into an out. They threw him out at third base, and they've done it a number of times this year. And so to me, that is a level of maturity. Now, you can have accountability, but the real answer is not manager to player accountability or coaches to player account. It's player to player accountability. And I know Springer's really good at doing that, and Chapman. You get the dugout. You see the veterans sitting next to Bichette. Chapman and Bichette are in the dugout. You see Dalton Varsho and Springer all the time in the dugout. But this is a level of intensity and focus that Vladdy needs to be there. And I don't know that there's anybody really that can be that accountability for Vladdy. And he's the one that I think needed it and maybe missed it the most this year, where he's gotten out of himself some. He doesn't have anybody say to him, dude, what are you doing? Sit on the fastball, adjust to the breaking ball, and punish the fastball. Trust yourself. You don't have to be in between these two pitches to try to hit them both, because what you end up doing, you don't hit either one of them as hard as you should, or driving it or lifting it the way that you can. And so, and that's where coaches can come in. But boy, once you get around for a few years in the big leagues, the coaches can make some tips and make a small adjustment here and there. But as a player, you've got to accept that accountability yourself.
With Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst, Jay's off today, back in action against Kansas City tomorrow. You mentioned those kids who have come up, and we're talking big roster spots. We're talking Chapman, we're talking Bichette. Now Jansen's going to be out, Heineman's come up. But Schneider, his numbers are absolutely off the charts. He's hitting for power, he's slugging. That's something that's been seriously lacking with this team. It's one thing that they can't hit with runners in scoring position. They don't hit for power consistently across the lineup, but Schneider has supplied that. And yet it still feels too premature to take a guess at what he will be in the future. Like, what is he this time next year, let alone 3-5 years down the road? If you were a fly on the wall and you heard, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro talking about Schneider's future, what do you think they would be saying?
Yeah, so you're right. You cannot look at these numbers right now and say, man, look what he's going to be. I mean, I think he's like hitting 386 with a 500 on base percentage and 864 slugging percentage. Right, 385, 512, and 846. I mean, and so this is not sustainable, what he's doing. He's got 15 extra base hits in 20 games. He has scored 18 runs and driven in 19 runs in 20 games. And he's walked 17 times or something like that. And so, but what he is he's a guy that has great idea of the strike zone, very good plate discipline, although he does swing and miss some, and yet his overall numbers, you'll take them, even though he has 22. He struck out 1 out of every 3 at bats, but he is taking his walks, and he's driving the ball, and so you'll live with some of the strikeouts that way. I think that they look at him as probably a second baseman in the future, but it's really premature to think that he's going to be an all-star player. Like, he's playing like an all-star right now. He's playing all-world right now. But I think he's a guy that will hit, 270 and will have a 370 on base percentage and probably a 450 slugging, which is all functional, everyday type player production for a guy to play second base. Doesn't have great range, and that's the thing. People keep saying, well, the Blue Jays farm system is maybe better than we thought. When they do these rankings of farm systems, they look for toolsy guys, right? Guys that can run and throw and hit for, light tower power. And And they look, say in the rankings, they look for the top 100 guys that are going to be potential all-stars in the future. What the Jays brought up were baseball players. Right? Like Schneider's a baseball player. He's not going to lead the league in hitting. He's not going to lead the league in home runs. He's going to have good on base percentage. He's going to hit some home runs. And so they're guys who make plays. And really, you could make a case, and I think a strong case, that when they needed it the most, it wasn't the veterans who delivered. It was Schneider and Horwitz. And I mean, Ernie Clement is making plays defensively that Bichette doesn't make. And the pickoff plays that they've put on and gotten outs in big moments that Bichette doesn't put on. I mean, and there's no knock on Bo Bichette. I love him. He would be my starting shortstop. But there is something about a guy who's known for his defense to come in, and then you get offense from him too. But he goes out there and he makes plays defensively. It looks different, and he certainly has done that. And Espinal has certainly stepped up offensively here lately as well.
Steve, when you played, were you a superstitious ball player? Like if you were being interviewed before a game and somebody asked you about how well you were playing and are you concerned it's going to fall off a cliff, would that get into your head?
Yes. And so,
That's right.
it's only superstition if it doesn't work, right? I mean, it's only weird if it doesn't work. So I had this thing that I'd have to tap 3 times. I don't know, whenever I thought something that was negative, I had to tap 3 times to try to get to counteract the negativity of it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why or how or what it was. But yeah, if I was hot, I was wearing the same shirt, I was wearing the same socks, I was wearing the same underwear. I would wash them, but I would wear them again. I would try to eat the same meal. Now, I wasn't as good as Wade Boggs, where when you have 3,000 hits, you eat chicken every day. If I got cold, I changed it up and tried something different. But yeah, I think most players are, man, because when you deal with failure 7 out of 10 times, you've got to find a way to, in your mind, deal with how to overcome that and not let it dominate you. And so you come up with tricks to try to mess with yourself just so that you don't sit there dwelling in the shame of only getting 2 hits in 10 at-bats instead of 7 and 3 hits in 10 at-bats.
All right, Steve. All right. We'll leave it there. Good to hear.
I'm going to throw salt over my shoulder right now.
All right, buddy.
And I'm going to go eat garlic.
Good luck with the games tonight as well. Thank you, Steve.
Guys. I will see you. Bye-bye.
Steve Phillips, our TSN MLB analyst. Superstitious. That's why I love Davis Schneider, because even though I asked him a question about, what would have to happen for you to shave your mustache, your good luck mustache, and he answered the question, I thought, really, really well. And since then, what does he hit? A double? He hit a home run?
Yeah, he's fine. He's on fire.
Yeah. Man,
I could tell he wanted to say, is this guy for real?
He didn't.
He hasn't been in the big leagues long enough. He hasn't. I think if he plays another 300-400 games and that question was posed, he probably would.
Just hang up.
Possibly hang up. But he's still just kind of taking it all in, right? He's barely been up here. He's been phenomenal. It's been the coolest story of the year, for sure. Davis Schneider, no question. All right, Dan Patrick in about 20 minutes. Opening night in the NFL. We'll continue to tee that up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Dan Patrick in about 10 minutes. Luke Wilson in studio in the 6 p.m. hour. Team Luke Bryan versus O-Dog and Company.
Wow. Are you going to have a hat? Are you going to have a hat that just says O-Dog and Company?
Yes.
And C-O dot,
Yes, we have to. It's
Guys,
mandatory.
I'm just letting you know, O-Dog and Company. Is that what he said it was?
Yes.
Yes.
O-Dog and Company is temp.
Okay. It's a temporary name.
As the day goes on, there will be a name change.
Okay.
O-Dog and Friends.
I think there's a lot of potential. Personally, O-Dog and Company, really, that sounds like a winning name.
It sounds like a coffee shop or something.
Exactly.
It does. It went out of business in like the 80s. But anything's possible. And listen, the NFL season begins tonight, and we're going to start picking winners. Let's do it right now. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I am a team player. The Grappler's been picking a lot of winners. Now, you could look at this both ways. If we pick a winner tonight, I want a lot of props being directed towards the Grappler.
Yeah.
If this is a losing
you
same
wanted
game
all
parlay,
the vitriol go towards the
I think it's got to go towards the Grappler.
Yeah.
Does that seem sensible?
The second I talked you out of your own same game parlay, I was like, what have I gotten myself into?
We collectively came together on this, but there was one other prop I was looking at, but it doesn't matter. Okay, we're over the number. I'm expecting a shootout tonight.
All right.
I think both defenses kind of struggle. I think the offenses are going to get the jump here. Under the lights, prime time. The number's 53.5. That's a big number, but I could see a 38-31 game tonight. I could. Jerry Goff, over the number, 250 yards. That's an alternate yardage number. We like the over for Jerry Goff. Isaiah Pacheco, 40-plus yards rushing tonight. We love it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 70-plus receiving yards tonight. Again, we're thinking offense. We're thinking big numbers. If that happens, we're going 4 for 4 SGP. We love it. Plus 410. That's what you're getting on that. You can find that on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Today's best bets are powered by our friends at FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of our OverDrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly, 19-plus, and physically located in Ontario. Dan Patrick coming up.
Just got a tweet. Owen Co.
Owen Co. I love it.
Owen Co. Actually, that sounds pretty good. I got to be honest. That sounds like a successful type of company you're going to want to incorporate because we're going to pick winners. And I anticipate you having a big season. I really do. All right, Dan Patrick coming up. We're teeing up the game tonight. More on the Jays still to come. Back into the Jake Sanderson deal in Ottawa. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.